There is a child inside each of us, not a metaphorical one, a real living memory of who we were in our earliest years. This inner child carries our first experiences of love, fear, safety, and abandonment. And whether we acknowledge it or not, this child shapes how we respond to the world today. Jung believed that the key to wholeness is not to silence that child, but to listen to it. Most people carry the wounds of childhood in silence. We become adults on the outside, but deep down, we still ache for what we never received. The gaze that said, "You are enough." The arms that made us feel safe. The words that made us feel seen. Beneath our adult responsibilities, our intellect, our routines, lives this tender and impressionable being. It's the version of us that once loved purely, feared deeply, and believed that the world was magic. But when that magic was shattered, through trauma, neglect, or conditional love, a fracture appeared, and most of us never went back to mend it. We build walls instead. We grow up, but not in the way we think. We age, but we don't fully evolve. Jung believed that unless we integrate the unconscious parts of ourselves, including the inner child, we remain incomplete. That child might be hidden behind your achievements, your toughness, your emotional detachment, but it's still there, waiting. When we ignore it, it doesn't disappear. It just begins to express itself in distorted ways, through fears we can't explain, insecurities that won't go away, or emotional needs that seem bottomless. To begin healing is to turn around and say, "I see you, I know you're still there, and I'm ready to listen now." Have you ever wondered why some relationships trigger deep emotional reactions that seem irrational? Or why you fear rejection so much it paralyzes you? Often it's not the present that hurts. It's the past echoing through the moment. A person who had to walk on eggshells around a volatile parent may grow up fearing confrontation. Someone who was shamed for needing attention may learn to suppress their needs, or overcompensate by seeking constant validation. These patterns don't vanish with time. They become personality traits, defense mechanisms, adaptive strategies that helped us survive, but now keep us from thriving. And so, a child who was not allowed to cry might become an adult who cannot ask for help. A child who was made to feel like a burden may now feel guilty for simply existing. Jung saw these unconscious scripts as archetypal forces, ancient patterns that repeat themselves in every human life unless interrupted by awareness. We don't just grow out of our childhood. We grow from it. But if the roots are wounded, the branches will struggle to flourish. This is why healing the inner child isn't some sentimental exercise. It's essential psychological work. It's about returning to the source of the story and rewriting it with presence and compassion. As we explored in Face Your Shadow, Carl Jung's secret to becoming whole, unexamined wounds tend to control our choices, our relationships, even our sense of identity. By recognizing where these wounds come from, we begin to regain authorship over our own narrative. To survive emotional pain, children adapt. They become who they need to be to receive even scraps of love. They become the good child, the achiever, the quiet one, the funny one. Roles designed not from freedom, but from fear. These roles harden into masks. Masks we wear into adulthood, often without knowing. And while they may earn us praise, success, or connection, they also disconnect us from ourselves. How many of us perform our lives, never feeling truly seen? How many friendships are built on mutual personas rather than authentic presence? Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to meet the world. But the deeper truth of who we are lies behind it. The mask protects, yes, but it also isolates. It keeps us from being vulnerable, from expressing need, from receiving love in an unguarded way. And this becomes exhausting. We long to take off the mask, but we fear what will happen if we do. Behind every perfectionist is often a child who feared punishment for failure. Behind every people-pleaser is someone who learned that love must be earned. These masks are not arbitrary. They are the armor of the wounded child. But healing begins when we learn that we don't have to keep performing. That we are lovable even when we are messy, uncertain, or sad. That there's freedom in honesty, in saying, "This is me, not the role I've been playing." The inner child doesn't communicate with logic. It speaks through emotion. It whispers through overreactions, emotional numbness, or patterns that repeat no matter how hard we try to change them. A person who sabotages every close relationship may be afraid of being truly seen. Another who avoids intimacy might be protecting an old wound of abandonment. The symptoms vary, but the source is often the same: the unacknowledged child within. Anxiety, depression, compulsions. These are not always flaws to be fixed. Sometimes they are signals. They are the psyche's way of drawing attention to the parts of us that are still in pain. The child doesn't yell, it hides. But the hiding creates tension, and that tension eventually finds a way to speak. In panic attacks, in emotional shutdowns, in the quiet ache of not knowing why we always feel disconnected. Think of a child pulling on your sleeve saying, "Please notice me." That's what your emotions often are. Not enemies, but messengers. They want your presence, not your solutions. The trouble is, we're taught to suppress, to cope, to medicate. But Jung believed that healing requires us to turn toward the symptom, to ask it what it wants, what it's trying to tell us. And often, it's something as simple and profound as, "Please don't leave me again." When we stop pathologizing our pain and begin listening to it, everything changes. We stop being at war with ourselves. We become allies in our own healing. What if you could go back and be the adult you needed as a child? That's what reparenting is. It's not about blaming our parents or staying stuck in the past. It's about choosing, in the present, to give ourselves what we missed. Maybe it's the steady voice that says, "You're safe now." Maybe it's the gentle hand that doesn't push, but holds. Maybe it's simply allowing ourselves to feel, without fixing, without fleeing. Because healing doesn't always come through answers. Sometimes it comes through presence. For many, this begins with self-talk. Replacing the inner critic with an inner nurturer. Speaking to yourself with kindness, especially in moments of failure or fear. Noticing when you say things to yourself you would never say to a friend. And then, changing the tone. From harshness to warmth. From dismissal to dignity. It means validating your feelings rather than dismissing them. Choosing rest when you're exhausted. Setting boundaries without guilt. It means telling your body, "You don't have to brace anymore." It means learning that softness is not weakness. It's repair. These small acts accumulate. They reshape the nervous system. They build trust between your adult self and your inner child. You stop seeing your emotions as threats and begin to see them as signals. You stop running from yourself and begin to return. You begin to say, through action, "I'm not abandoning you. I'm here now." And the child inside begins to believe it. Not because of what you say, but because of how you stay. This isn't easy. It goes against decades of conditioning. But over time, a shift happens. The inner child, once fearful and quiet, begins to come forward, not with tantrums, but with joy. Not with demands, but with openness. You may feel laughter rise where there used to be shame. You may feel peace where there used to be tension. You begin to feel a sense of wholeness that no achievement ever gave you. Because you're no longer split. You're no longer rejecting the most tender part of yourself. You are no longer performing worth. You are living it. And in this return to your own care, you become a home you never had. You become the witness your inner child always longed for. As Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Reparenting is a sacred awakening. It is not a technique. It is a relationship. And the more you return, the more that child will trust. And the more whole you'll become. Children don't learn through lectures. They learn through play. And so do we. Creativity is one of the most direct ways to access the inner child. It bypasses logic and speaks the language of imagination. When we draw, dance, write, sing, We're not just making art. We're making contact with our truest self. The one that existed before judgment, before shame, before roles. You might say, I'm not creative. But that's the adult speaking, the one afraid of not being good enough. The inner child doesn't care about mastery. It cares about expression. Play brings back spontaneity. It reconnects us with joy for its own sake. It softens the seriousness that life piles on us over time. You might try finger painting, writing poems no one will read, playing an instrument badly, laughing loudly, running barefoot in the grass. These acts are not childish. They are healing. They remind the nervous system that life can be safe, that not everything needs to be controlled. In these moments, the inner child doesn't just feel heard. It feels alive again. It dances through your body as laughter. It colors your thoughts with wonder. It lets you rest without guilt and create without purpose. And in that space, something sacred returns. Presence. The kind of presence that doesn't perform, doesn't strive. It simply is. And that's where healing begins. Although healing starts within, it thrives in safe connection. The inner child often learned about love through hurt, and it needs new experiences to believe love can also be safe. When someone listens without judgment, when someone holds your sadness with compassion, that's medicine. These relationships become new reference points for what's possible. But they also require courage. To be seen is to risk being hurt again. Yet without this risk, we remain behind walls, safe but alone. Healing happens in the presence of another who can say, I'm still here, even when you reveal the messiest parts of yourself. This is where many wounded healers become guides. As we explored in Why Your Pain Makes You Powerful, Carl Jung on the wounded healer, those who've done the work of turning toward their pain can hold space for others in a profound way. Safe relationships rewire the brain. They teach us that love doesn't have to mean control, that boundaries can coexist with closeness, that we can be both flawed and loved. This is the paradox of healing. It begins inside, but it is completed together. You are not broken. You are unmet. There's a world of difference between the two. So many people live their lives thinking they are fundamentally flawed, too sensitive, too much, too complicated. But what if you're just carrying unmet needs? When you begin to see yourself not as broken, but as unfinished, something softens. You stop blaming yourself for your reactions. You start listening to them. And then, slowly, trust begins to return. Not in others, but in yourself. You start to believe that your pain makes sense, that your emotions are not too loud, but too long unheard. That healing is not becoming someone new, but coming home to who you were before the wounding. That child inside didn't need you to be perfect. They just needed you to stay, to care, to believe them. Healing isn't about erasing the scars. It's about honoring them, letting them be proof of what you survived and what you reclaimed. As we saw in Face Your Shadow, even our darkest parts hold gifts, if we're willing to see them clearly. You may never get the apology you deserved, but you can give yourself the presence you always needed, and that, in the end, is more powerful than any apology. Individuation, in Jungian terms, is the lifelong journey of becoming the person you truly are. Not who your parents expected, not who society rewards, but you. The inner child holds the blueprint for that authenticity. It remembers your essence, your spark. But individuation requires honesty. It requires peeling away every mask, every should, every performance, until what remains is raw, true, and real. The child within is not a distraction from your spiritual path. It is your spiritual path, because you cannot become whole while rejecting a part of yourself. The journey is not linear. Sometimes it feels like regress, but in truth, it's a spiral. A return to where you began, but with eyes that now see clearly. You don't have to abandon your past to move forward. You have to integrate it. And when you do, when the child and the adult walk together, that's where real power begins. Healing doesn't mean erasing the pain. It means giving it a voice, a place, a purpose. The wounds of the inner child are not signs of weakness, but invitations to deeper wisdom. When you listen closely, you'll find that what you thought were flaws were actually signals, calling you home. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And in that remembering, you awaken a strength that is gentle, grounded, and unshakably yours. So here's a simple invitation. Find a quiet moment. Close your eyes. Picture the child you once were. See their face, their eyes, the way they stood. Now speak to them, gently, with kindness, as if your voice could reach through time. Tell them what they needed to hear, and stay with them. This practice may bring tears, or it may bring peace. But either way, it brings truth. You are the one you've been waiting for. You are the one who can show up and say, I won't leave again. I'm here now, and I love you. If this video stirred something in you, consider watching Face Your Shadow, Carl Jung's Secret to Becoming Whole, where we explore how your unconscious shapes your reality. And for those who felt that their pain has made them unworthy, we invite you to watch The Wounded Healer, Why Your Pain Makes You a Guide for Others. If this message helped you reconnect with your own tenderness, please like, share, and subscribe to The Art of Being. There is beauty in your brokenness, and together, we can make it whole. You don't have to become someone stronger. You only have to become someone softer. The child in you is not asking for perfection, only presence. Every time you return to them with love, the past loses its grip, and in that quiet reunion, something sacred is restored. Not fixed, not forced, simply felt. And finally, free.